Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the July 9th, 2013 Lawrence City Commission meeting. We just had a couple hour study session and we're getting ready to start our regular meeting. First item on the agenda for our regular meeting is recognition or a proclamation that is for the Parks and Recreation Month. Jimmy, you here to talk about that?
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm Roger Steinbrock, the Marketing Supervisor for Parks and Recreation. Since 1985, Parks and Recreation Month has been celebrated on the national level. The National Parks and Recreation Association chose July because it's a great time to highlight all the valuable benefits a Parks and Recreation program can bring to a community. From health and wellness to nature and community spirit, Parks and Recreation is celebrated. We know majority of Lawrencians take an active part in celebrating park and recreation every day of the year. From those brave souls who get up at the crack of dawn and swim their laps at 5 a.m. at the Indoor Aquatic Center, to children participating in our archery camps at the Nature Center, or the tens of thousands that enroll in programs every day or in programs throughout the year, keeping active and improving their own personal quality of life. We also see people celebrating year-round in parks, maybe celebrating family with a reunion at one of the many shelters, listening to the city band concert tomorrow night, 8 p.m. South Park, for those of you that want to go listen to that. And then, or just taking a leisure walk by oneself or with a loved one on one of the many trails we are so grateful to have here in Lawrence. Taking a month to highlight Parks and Recreation also provides us professionals in the Parks and Recreation field the opportunity to take pause and to thank our communities for their support and their generosity, for their support in providing us, help us do what we do on a daily basis. So on behalf of the Lawrence Parks and Recreation Department, we want to thank all the citizens of Lawrence for all they've given us to do our jobs in providing excellent city services that hopefully they see enhance their quality of life. We also want to thank the elected body and the city administration for providing us the tools to do our job to the best of our ability. And we encourage everyone, whether they celebrate Parks and Recreation Month every day or once a month, to take time to visit a park, walk a trail, take in the beauty of nature, habitat, and the creatures that are there. Go for a swim, take a little league ball game in, get an adult softball or kickball team together and get registered before Friday, this Friday, July 12th, because that's the deadline, or grabbing some friends and playing a round of golf at Eagle Bend, or the countless number of ways that we have listed on our website, lprd.org.
Wow, that was a marketing spiel. I love it. Excellent job. Well, Roger, you guys do a great job of not only keeping people fit, but promoting the services that we offer. And I'm proud of the Parks and Rec department we have. And we are really fortunate to be able to do so many things through our city services. And I know a lot of the people in this community would not enjoy the quality of life in Lawrence without this great Parks and Rec service. So thank you for that, and thank you for letting me give you this proclamation. Whereas Parks and Recreation programs are an integral part of the city of Lawrence, and whereas our parks and recreation are vitally important to establishing and maintaining the quality of life in our community, ensuring the health of all citizens, and contributing to its economic and environmental well-being. And whereas Parks and Recreation programs build a healthy, active community that aids in the prevention of chronic disease, provides therapeutic recreation services for those who are mentally or physically disabled, and also improves the mental and emotional health of all citizens. And whereas our parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. Recreate the outdoors. And whereas the city of Lawrence recognizes the benefits derived from parks and recreation resources. Now, therefore, I, Michael Dever, Mayor of the City of Lawrence, Kansas, do hereby proclaim the month of July to be Parks and Recreation Month. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Take care, Roger. All right, the next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, and all matters listed on the consent agenda will be considered under one motion and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items. If a discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. Is there an item from the consent agenda that a member of the commission would like removed?
5C.
5C. Anything else? And is there an item somebody would like removed from the consent agenda from the public? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to add $3,154,974.59 to vendors, to 199 vendors, and remove 5C. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Motion approved by Commissioner Amick, or Vice Mayor Amick, seconded by Commissioner Farmer. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Item 5C, Jeremy.
Because I'm employed by Just Food and this has to do with that, I'm going to recuse myself and leave the room, and so you guys can discuss.
Sounds good. Item 5C is to approve a request for one-time general fund allocation in the amount of $25,000 to Just Food, Inc. for the purchase of a refrigerated box truck.
I'm going to have Danny walk us through this item just briefly. See the memo, and she and I will respond to questions.
Good evening. Basically, with this item, what has happened was, as you remember, we had to submit a conflict of interest waiver for the food truck because of Commissioner Farmer being the executive director of Just Food. Turns out that the conflict of interest was non-existent and everything was good there, but HUD said it wasn't a qualifying capital improvement project.
Okay?
So what we are asking is if it would be possible to go ahead and fund that out of general fund, and then we in turn with CDBG funds would be able to take care of a project such as sidewalks in low mod areas. So.
Great, so we're swapping out funds.
Right. And
Yes.
what we have general fund expenditures for sidewalk work. We also use sometimes infrastructure sales tax and such. So what we will do is we will take that, I think it's over 25,000 that we spend on miscellaneous sidewalk type work throughout the years. We will then take that money, buy the truck for Just Food. We'll have an appropriate contract, all that kind of work. And then what we will then do is use CDBG funding for then sidewalk work, which is not to put too much of a pun on it. It's a well-worn path for how we've been able to use sidewalk money for CDBG sidewalk money. So we think that works, that accomplishes the goals of the Community Development Advisory Committee and the City Commission in approving all of that, and moves us forward on all those items without, it's not, I want to make it very clear because we just spent a lot of time talking about one-time funding in the general fund. That's appropriate here because we're essentially displacing an expenditure that we would already have in the general fund.
And we will have a public hearing with the CDAC also, so there will be opportunity for public input on that. And then we will have to do a substantial amendment to the consolidated plan, and that will come back to you for approval.
Okay, great. Thanks, Danny. Any questions?
No.
No. Okay. Is there any questions from the public on this? Comments? Seeing none, come back to the commission. Is there a motion to approve item 5C?
I would move that we approve item 5C.
Motion to approve item 5C by Commissioner Reardon, seconded by Commissioner Shum. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion passes 4-0 with Commissioner Farmer recusing himself. Would you like to get him? Thank you. All right, the next item on the City Commission meeting agenda is the City Manager's Report.
Mayor, Commissioners, just briefly, last week you continued consideration of the development agreement for the Rock Chalk Park Recreation Center and associated improvements. We had some absences that meant that we weren't able to get the work accomplished Wednesday and Thursday of last week. It's been by discussion with the city attorney and then Gary Anderson with Gilmore and Bell that we're making progress in recommending what you see here in regards to the monthly updates and reviews of the various invoices. Staff met with the Rock Chalk Park developers and representatives of the Endowment Association this afternoon, and also the contractor that is doing the bulk of the work, King's Construction, to talk about how we're going to be reviewing all of those different documents. So we believe that work is well underway, and we plan on having this back on your regular agenda next Tuesday.
Okay.
You have a mid-year report from the Facility Division of the Public Works Department. We talked a little bit when we were talking about concealed carry about all the different buildings that we have under city jurisdiction. This really just gets at some of the public works facilities, and you see a lot of good work that is going on there. Also, our stormwater utility has successfully done some stormwater improvements there in the 2800 block of Ridge Court, and you see some information about that. Happy to respond to any questions that you might have.
Any questions for the city manager? Thank you, Dave. Next item on the agenda is the regular agenda items, and I'd like to point out that if you haven't already done so, please silence your cell phones so don't get interrupted during the meeting. And then also, public comment is limited to 4 minutes per item, and at 3 minutes and 30 seconds, I'll ring this bell, and you'll be asked to wrap it up. So thank you very much. First item on the agenda is consider items for the new development at 900 New Hampshire Street.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Lynn Braddock-Zollner, Historic Resources Administrator for the city. Here this evening with 3 items for the new construction to be located at 900 New Hampshire Street. You have a site plan, including building elevations that you requested come back to you for review and approval, a license agreement for use of a portion of the city's right-of-way, and a construction traffic control plan. This is for new construction. It's a mixed-use structure. The main or primary use will be a hotel. There will be ground floor retail or commercial space with 3 living units on the 5th floor and 2 levels of underground parking. This is the project location at 9th and New Hampshire on the southeast corner, adjacent to the Lawrence Arts Center. These are the revised site plan and landscape plan that we received, showing there's going to be a drop-off lane on New Hampshire Street, and then there will be parallel parking. This portion right here, I know it's a little hard to see, I'm so far away, but this item was in your packet as well. The garage actually goes underneath the sidewalk, and so that's why you have the request for use of a portion of a right-of-way. It's not like we typically see above ground, but it will be below ground. And then just quickly through the elevations, and I put some renderings on top that the architect provided for us because the elevation drawings are a little difficult to read sometimes. But this is the west elevation or the main elevation. The east elevation, the alley elevation. The north elevation with the entrance to the parking garage and the loading dock, and also the retail space. And then the elevation that's adjacent to the Lawrence Arts Center, or the south elevation. The architect provided us also with a colored rendering that shows you a little bit of how many different building materials there are, the fenestration pattern, the overall look of the final product. Staff does recommend approval of the site plan with some conditions that were in your packet. Basically, these are cleanup items like the site plan performance agreement and review of the final construction documents. The next item is, or the C of this, is the traffic control plan. This was also included in the agenda packet, and the applicant did provide a revised or an extra exhibit to show you exactly which lanes would be closing, and they are here, and they have a brief presentation that they would like to give you as well. So if you have any questions, I can take those, or we can.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Micah Kimball with Trainer Architects. Tonight, Lynn did a great job of showing you the project. We were excited to be here tonight to kind of wrap up a long process with this. Wanted to give you an update on schedule and then also talk about the construction plan. Our current schedule on this is to get the general contractor to start mobilization July 15th. That'll take a week to 2 weeks to mobilize, get fencing set up, get signs ordered, and the like. So we will begin excavation and earthwork as anticipated at the end of July, last week of July. And then duration of the project is, with July included, is roughly about 15 months, is what our anticipated duration would be. Site plan, you guys have seen the site plan. Lynn walked you through that, and I can answer any questions that you may have on that. Then the construction plan. But I wanted to show you this exhibit that we did submit. We are not closing New Hampshire Street or 9th Street, but rather it's a closure during the construction period of the northbound lane of New Hampshire, whereas the existing turning lane, the left turn lane, would become a through lane, and that would be become a single lane. The road as it exists is 3 lanes, both northbound, southbound, and the turning lane. 9th Street would, we're going to do the exact same thing on 9th Street and take the eastbound lane and turn that into, we'll have our construction fencing, temporary staging in that location, and utilize the turning lane during the construction period as a through lane. The alley that's to the east, that will be temporarily closed. That's not anticipated to be closed the full duration of the project, just during foundations and the earthwork, and we need to close it to repave the alley in that area. It's anticipated to be right around 6 months. And then again, the renderings, I'll turn it back to you guys and answer any questions you may have.
Just one, the closure of, well, not closure of 9th Street, but that's going to extend to Rhode Island Street, where those the closing down of the lanes?
No, it will only extend to the alley.
Just to the alley?
Right. Let me see if I can get back to that. This is the alley along the east side.
Yeah.
And the fencing and the closure would only extend to the east side of the alley. It will
Okay.
not continue all the way to Rhode Island.
Okay. Oh, got it.
And one thing that I know that it came up in the past, this is the construction staging area. It is actually to the north, it's off-site, but we have a construction staging area there, and we also plan to utilize just-in-time delivery. And we've got additional warehousing in other parts of the city that we will use as temporary staging as well.
It's probably, Mayor, question of staff, probably more than Micah. The solid waste in the alley there, things picked up in the alley now, and where are they going to be picked up?
We typically make arrangements with the property owner, whether we have to walk back there and pick it up by hand or sometimes we'll work with the contractor. It's happened on several projects. We'll get it.
Okay.
You mean for the other people in the alley?
Well, yeah. I mean, you got 4 or 5 houses back up through there, plus the league office, social service league.
It's not uncommon even on some of our projects that we want to make accommodations.
Don't
I didn't see the comment, we'll get it on here, so.
Yeah, now you're clear. You got it.
They always do. You know,
I know.
They always are ahead of me and they always seem to get it. So.
Got it.
Mayor, has the social service league moved? Will they be moving?
We are in the process of obtaining a building permit at
Okay.
the Allen Press, the old bindery area at 11th and New Hampshire. And once we have that building permit, then we can occupy that. We need a building permit for change of use.
Okay.
And we got that letter, the building permit application signed from the existing building owner yesterday. So
Awesome.
we're in process in that. So they haven't been moved, but we have everything staged and ready to go.
Okay, awesome.
That's all I got.
Okay. Any other questions for Micah? Great, thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you.
Is there public comment on this?
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is KT Walsh. I wanted to let you know that the project manager and one of the architects met with some board members of the Percolator to let us know about traffic patterns. We face the alley, and so they assured us there'd be foot traffic, there'd be a pathway, and they'd be especially sensitive to Final Fridays and any openings we hold. I know it's an honest mistake in the paper this morning, but a 64-foot building at the corner is a 6-story building, just for the record. And lastly, the Social Service League will not have any parking, which is my understanding when they go down, which is a difficulty. They're hoping to have a drop-off spot, but they won't be able to park across where Miss Ellie's does. They won't be able to park across the alley. I think it's going to be a little jammed. Not everybody walks to the Social Service League, so maybe someone can negotiate for a little bit of parking there. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Katie. Any other public comment? Seeing none, back to the commission. Any questions or comments?
I have a comment that I think that it has been a long time, but I think the process has worked very well in this case. I remember the first rendering I saw of this, and I was not very enthused about it at all. It looked like a very large, ugly box. But yet through the process of going back to the HRC, working with them, I think you have an outstanding looking project. It's scaled down to the neighborhood. It's going to be really a very handsome building for downtown Lawrence, and I appreciate all the work that everybody went through that, including taking one level off the building as well and reducing the backside. And so I think it's a very handsome project now that is going to do well for all of us, and I hope it works well for all of us. So I appreciate everyone's hard work on that, and I know it was a lot of hard work. So
Appreciate the
it's a
comments.
much better project today than what it started out there.
Question. Any other comments or questions?
See you on Friday.
They're moving on.
If you want me to make a motion,
Please, that'd be great.
I would move that we accept site plan SP 12-00278, including the building elevations, a license agreement for use of the portion of the city's right-of-way, and the construction traffic control plan.
Second.
Motion to approve A, B, and C of item 1 by Commissioner Shum, seconded by Vice Mayor Amix. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is consider items related to the Kellen addition, which is generally located at the northwest corner of Queens Road and Overland Drive.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Sandy Day, planner. The items that you have before you this evening include 3 rezonings. The Planning Commission has forwarded those items to you with recommendations for approval, 2 of which had a unanimous recommendation. Planning Commission also considered the preliminary plat, which is not on your agenda this evening. The request or the development includes the preliminary plat and then 3 separate and distinct zoning districts, but they do work together to provide an overall project. This exhibit shows you the proposed detached dwelling, RS7 and RS5, and then medium density residential zoning in the form of the RM12 request. The property is located in that northwest portion of the city. To the north is RM12 with a PD overlay. That's the Links project. We have single-family and duplex zonings to either side, east and west, and then RM24 zoning to the south, Hunter's Ridge. This exhibit was provided just to give you, again, some contextual relationship of the subject property. The preliminary plat layout is shown here, and you should have a similar exhibit in your packets, where this low-density piece, the RS7, is adjacent to what is approved as the Links project, a low-density project, Oregon Trail and Park West subdivisions to either side, and then Hunter's Ridge to the south along 6th Street. Just a different configuration of the same information of the RS7 highlighted on the left side of the screen and the RM12 highlighted on the right-hand side of the screen so that you can see the progression of intensity as we move through this project from the south to the north. Planning Commission, as I mentioned, forwarded the recommendations to you. The RS7 and the RS5 recommendations were unanimous, and the RM12 recommendation was 7-1. Your action requested tonight is the approval of the 3 rezonings and the related ordinances. And your options for the rezonings are to approve that request or to approve it with conditions, deny the request, or to return the request to the Planning Commission with direction. And the applicant is here to address you if you have more specific questions about their project.
Great, thank you very much. Yes.
This may be a question for the applicant, and maybe you know it as well. But how many units are we talking about in these 3 rezoning?
I would have to pull the file if you could give me a minute, but the applicant may have that information
Okay,
more
that's
readily
all right.
available.
How many apartment units?
How many apartment units?
Yeah.
Oh, that's all right, we can ask the
I wanna make
applicant.
sure is that what you meant?
Well, in total, the whole.
Yeah.
Good evening, Commissioner Shum. It's 172 maximum apartment units in the RM12.
And then are the other sites single-family structures?
We have 67 RS7, 16 RS5. And since I'm here, good evening, Mayor Dever and Commissioners.
Good to see you.
My name's Matt Goff. I'm with Barber Emerson Law Firm here tonight on behalf of Highland Construction, the applicant. My comments are very brief. We met with the staff 3 or 4 times prior to submitting this application with the express intent of presenting this in a manner that reflects the staff's recommendation. We tried very deliberately to present you with a project that has no conditions, and we were very pleased to be able to do that. We hosted a neighborhood meeting on June 17th, and no one came. And the Planning Commission was very supportive of the project, and we believe it merits your consideration for approval. I'll stand for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Public comment? Seeing none, back to the commission.
Mayor?
Yes.
I might also remind you that as a zoning request, we encourage you to declare any ex parte communications.
Okay, I'll start. None.
I'll go second. Matt Goff called me to see if I wanted to meet, and I said no.
He called and I didn't call him back, so I'm sorry about that. But
I'll go
Me
next.
too.
I'll go next. He called me and I never got to call him back, so I didn't talk to anybody about this.
I did speak with Matt. Information that he talked about was basically the PC minutes and what they went through and the presentation he had tonight.
Very good. Is that good? Thanks. So there's one thing that came up. Perhaps you can highlight this as the only reasonable explanation. I have one in my mind. I want your opinion. The discussion about why this wouldn't be a PUD or why there's not a planned development for this type of parcel. It seemed like an unusual question, given that, you know, we've kind of hyper platted the exterior portion of it, and really we're talking about the core. And they talked about managing egress and, you know, throughways on the property. Can you explain to me why you wouldn't do that?
Mayor, we had pretty extensive conversations with the applicant, actually through a series of meetings about the best zoning process, the best zoning options, including a planned development. At one point, they were sort of at a point where they were proposing a mix of structure types, and so we thought we would get a planned development. When the applicant's design yielded pretty much straight zoning for the single-family lots and a more conventional structure type on the RM zoning, it was agreed upon by staff and the applicant that just straight zoning with site planning for the RM district would probably be just the most appropriate here, and then platting the single-family lots and let the permits come in as the lots are developed.
Okay, so this isn't really, you didn't see any huge violation of a good policy by doing so, as the League of Women Voters pointed out, that we should yield and do it a different way.
Yeah.
create a PUD for this?
The league's comments have been provided on several different rezoning requests of this nature, and we don't agree about on their position. If we agreed that there were some issues related to impacts for future division into townhousing and condoing and things, then we would seek code amendments likely. We just don't believe that there's any harm in the way our code treats apartment projects in terms of their concerns. And we have the discussion pretty much every time this comes up with the Planning Commission, and we reiterate that our position is different than theirs. So if it were a project that we felt that needed waivers, or they were seeking a mix of uses or different structure types, then we would advocate for the planned development, much like we did with the links to the north. This is very conventional in terms of its design and what they want to do with it, and so we support it as proposed.
Right, very good, thank you. Any questions for staff or comments?
Well, Mayor, just along the comments that you just made, if we look at the natural progression of the zoning district, the zoning districts as they're laid out, you go from the RM24 on the south, to the RM12, and you got RM12 buffers on the east, and then, the RS5 and the RS7. It seems to me that it's a natural progression of zoning and probably makes a lot of sense. You did have a comment yesterday about, the roadway system here, but I think that one of these days we probably ought to have discussion about it. So, I think...
Like when we're going to actually finish it, or
yeah,
pave it, I should say?
Yeah. Well, what are the conditions,
Yeah.
on all this property out there? Because that's a pretty big roadway.
It's not a condition, though. The Queens Road completion?
The condition will come with that is mentioned in the report, is that this property, as all of the others that have developed or have been entitled for development, requires them to agree not to protest the formation of a benefit district to complete Queens Road, which really is kind of driven by those developments, but also at the city's direction and timing as well.
Okay.
So there's a no protest petition, and then that would put everybody on that street with one, I think, all except maybe a couple towards the intersection.
Ones to the south.
Yeah,
there,
to the south.
Single-family old ones. Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Is there a motion?
I move that we accept, approve ordinance number 8879, 8880, and 8881 on first reading.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Shum, seconded by Vice Mayor Amix. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is consider authorizing the publication of our 2014 budget summary, establishing July 23rd, 2013 as the public hearing date.
Mayor, Commissioners, just as quick background, we did have a 2-hour study session, and we'll give you the consensus of where you wanted to move forward in regards to the 2014 budget. Just for everyone's brief summary, the city's budget year is the calendar year. We are required by state law to get the adopted budget to the county clerk toward the end of August. We're required to have a public hearing in which we adopt the budget, and you are required to set that public hearing date by state law. That is your action tonight, is to set the public hearing date of July the 23rd, 2013 as the public hearing date for the budget. The way that the state law operates is that you set the maximum expenditure authority for funds. And you also set the maximum property tax mill levy for all the different funds that have property taxes. The general fund, library fund, the bond and interest fund have property tax mill levies. You can reduce that mill levy at the public hearing. You can reduce the expenditure amounts. You can move expenditure amounts between funds, but you cannot increase the expenditure amount. You cannot increase the mill levy other than what you are setting tonight as the public hearing date. I think what I'm going to ask is Casey to go to the podium and give a summary for the benefit of the commission, and then also for the benefit of the audience as to What you wanted to do with the recommended budget, again, is by way of background, by state law, the city manager has to provide a recommended budget. That's what I have done. That's what our staff has done. And you had an opportunity to review that. My recommended budget included a 0.4 mill levy increase to fund the items that you see there that Casey has highlighted. That did not obviously fund all of our needs, all of the requests. That was just my recommendation based upon conversations with you and what I believe was appropriate. You all have, in the discussions that you had earlier today, indicated, you obviously don't make decisions, you didn't vote, but you indicated that you also wanted to increase the city's mill levy, obviously contingent upon county funding as well. They provide 60% of the funding for the Lawrence Douglas County Health Department, $14,000, which would increase the mill levy 0.017. You also indicated that you wanted to provide additional increased funding for the library, in addition to spending down the fund balance of $40,000. I believe their most recent request was an additional $50,000. That had the mill levy impact of 0.048. You also indicated that you wanted to provide additional funding to the Humane Society, the Lawrence Humane Society, LHS, of $30,000 beyond what the additional $20,000 that we had in the base budget for a mill levy impact of 0.036. So that we estimate that the additional mill levy would increase roughly a half mil, 0.510. Corrections.
What are you standing there
Stole
for?
my thunder.
Okay. I wanted to recite that and make sure that I understood it. So, Casey, is that pretty much
Yeah,
everything?
I mean, the only thing I'd add is the blue ones were the recommended, included in the recommended budget that we presented. And then the ones that are not blue are the ones that you all talked about at your study session today.
In addition to that, you directed me to find one-time funding support for 3 additional items. Hearthstone, which provides alcohol, substance abuse counseling in the community, of $7,600. The dental clinic, $5,000. Understand that we'll find that from other sources, but that would not be built into the mill levy, or an expectation that funding continues unless you all direct otherwise in future budget years. You also then asked that I find one-time funding to do $39,000 of capital improvements at the Lawrence Arts Center, the building that the city owns at the Arts Center. We'll do that through either fund balances, maybe reserve funds, maybe debt financing. We'll just need to take a look at that and drill into those amounts. So that's the additional work that really, it's not building into the mill levy, but it's additional work that you want to see accomplished. We'll probably, may be able to do the Art Center work, probably want to do that before some of their quotes change. We may do that this year.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Bert Nash, did we want to make sure everyone heard that we were talking about maybe security based on funding?
Thank you.
That was Jeremy's catch.
That is correct. Additional $60,000 contingent upon the county providing the same for security improvements at the community health building that the city and the county jointly own and jointly have maintenance maintenance responsibilities, utility responsibilities for that. Additional $60,000. Thanks for reminding me of that. I had it on a separate sheet. I'd like to forget it, but it's probably important.
It's all good.
And again, for the benefit of the audience here, I want to make sure that everybody understands these are all great, worthy projects. We just have a challenge that a lot of people didn't get a chance to opportunity to hear, that our expenditures exceed revenue in what we have for our 14 budget. So we will have to work hard. We've done it in the past. We'll do it again to beat those expectations in regards to expenditure management, and hopefully a little bit better news on revenue. But we're trying to squeeze as much as we can into the budget. We can go over that in more detail if you think that's worthy of either your consideration or the audience's consideration.
Additionally, we talked about the shelter loan.
Thank you. It's an item that's probably just going to be a 13 item where we're going to look at fund balances to extend a loan. Basically, it's kind of a capture loan of the Lawrence Community Shelter where they have borrowed money, approximately $500,000. It's a little bit cumbersome to issue debt for that, even though we can probably borrow. You'll find out next week what we can borrow money at when we have our temporary note sale. But we can borrow it probably at quite a bit less than what they've currently got their note at, and so they would pay us back over time. So we'll do that probably through a number of different fund balances. We'll look at special alcohol. We'll look at some other fund balances. I don't really want to look at the general fund balance because of its challenges, but we'll find a way to do it. So that's where we left it, as I understood, with the appropriate corrections and amplifications from you all just a few hours, or about an hour ago.
Okay, very good. So the budget has been published, the public has been made aware of it, had access to it. Is there any public comment on the proposed budget as well as the additions that we made this evening during our study sessions? We haven't voted on any of this. These are all numbers that have been discussed by commissioners and we believe may be able to be agreed upon this evening.
Good evening, I'm Dory Villalone. I'm the Executive Director of the Lawrence Humane Society. First off, thank you for the additional $30,000 and for the city manager's initial recommendation of 20. There's a couple of things that I just want to point out here. We're a humane society, and I am afraid that the puppies and kitties and emotion can sometimes cloud the issue or misrepresent the fact that we are a vendor for the city. You rely on us 24/7. I have staff on duty 24/7 to respond to emergencies, and our building is accessible to the police and animal control 24/7. If we're not here, the city is going to have to figure out what to do. Now, could the Humane Society go away? Well, since we have been, unbeknownst to any of us, subsidizing the city animal control program for so long, we have no reserves. The money that people donate to us goes right into our operational budget. We have nothing set aside. Now we have the numbers, and these aren't even, these aren't hard and fast numbers. These are very conservative numbers. When you look at the analysis that I did, I considered the current salaries that the staff is being paid, $7 to $8 an hour. The salaries that the administrative staff is being paid falls lower than the industry standards. I didn't factor in the 24-hour-a-day person and the veterinary bills for the hit-by-car dog on July 4th. So I believe that I've presented to you a very simple, very factual recommendation. It's not based on emotions. It's based on, we have a partnership. It makes good business sense for you to keep that partnership healthy so that we can move on. By the way, you're welcome for all those years that we didn't charge you.
Thanks. Well, let's be, these are your accounting numbers that you have created and arrived at after coming on board?
Yes,
Yeah, so
absolutely.
Was there not any accounting or no numerical reconciliation annually of the costs associated with running the shelter in the past?
No, actually, it was one of the first questions that I asked coming on was, wow, let's look at our animal control contract. Is it paying for the expenses that it costs us? The problem is the Humane Society never had shelter software. So I couldn't come back to you and say, this is the exact number of animals that we get from the city that are stray. Now we had entire 2012 statistics that I was able to draw from. And I'm absolutely happy to work with Casey or whoever we need to work with in the city to look at those numbers again. I used my experience as an animal welfare professional and what I've used in past communities in this situation. I'm also more than happy to sit down and let's talk about how animal control can reduce costs and increase efficiency. I can tell you ways that you can reduce the number of animals coming in the building. We can reduce the length of stay for animals that were being held for cruelty. So there's a lot of areas that we can work together on, but I just have to stand here tonight and ask you, we're $30,000 apart. Where's that money going to come from? I'm already asking our donors 8 times a year to donate to the Humane Society. They're already paying taxes. So where's that money going to come from if it doesn't come from the city who uses the service that we provide to you?
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Stone, and I am the veterinarian at the Lawrence Humane Society, and I'm very happy to be here tonight. I just wanted to let you know that I'm also a taxpayer and a citizen here, and I have been for more than a year now, I'm very proud to say. And I love Lawrence, and I think this is a wonderful place. Over the last year, we have made great improvements in our efficiency. We have a wonderful staff. We've gone through many training procedures to get people on board and doing things faster, getting the animals processed, getting them healthy faster, and getting them out of the shelter faster. I think, as Dory said, we can definitely improve that over time, and it would be wonderful if we could work together to do that. Dory talked a lot about the pragmatic side, the numbers side, but I just wanted to relay a story to you that is more of the emotional side, because that's the side that I tend to see more often. In May, there was a cat that came into our shelter. He was geriatric, weak, debilitated. He had been seen by a local veterinarian who had done a radiograph, but he was a stray, and that veterinarian saw a large mass next to his heart on the radiograph. We provided him with treatment and supportive care. The veterinarian who saw him initially was very concerned because he was so sick, and was concerned that we were going to keep him for the 72-hour holding period. In spite of all of his problems, he was purring and eating, and so I decided we would go ahead and try to keep him. We kept him for 2 days. We waited the full 48 hours, and at that point, we were getting very worried about him and very concerned, when all of a sudden, someone ID'd him and reclaimed him. And as it turned out, he was 17 years old. His name was Tom, and the young woman standing in front of me, had had him since she was 5 years old. And although she decided that he was too debilitated to take home, it was a joyful reunion, and it was a very happy ending for both of them. And that's one of the major services that we provide to the city of Lawrence. We help reunite animals with their owners. We prevent suffering. We help animal control infectious disease in our community. And I hope that you will continue to support us in those endeavors. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Commissioners, all of you, good evening. My name is Jay Wachs. I'm here as the General Manager of the Lawrence Weather Phone and also the online radio station lawrencehits.com. We have made a commitment to the Humane Society and to all of the other nonprofits in Douglas County to not charge them for the purposes of marketing and advertising, so that we can help them keep their money into their operational funds. That being said, one of the towns that I've lived in during my radio career was Albany, Georgia, where I served on the Economic Development Commission for Dougherty County. One of the problems that we faced in Georgia was a very similar issue with the budget. And one of the items that came up on that budget was funding for the Dougherty County Humane Society. We were able to demonstrate that our ability with the Humane Society to reduce the feral population in Dougherty County and to provide services that reduce the dependence upon the Humane Society, actually reduce costs for both the city and the county. So I respectfully suggest and ask that you give this firm consideration, because I think it'll be money well spent. In addition to that, on the emotional side, I happen to be the adoptive parent of Jet, the black downtown cat who used to walk up and down Massachusetts Street, and now he resides peacefully with me, even though he still thinks he's the mayor. Thank you for your time.
Thanks. Hey, Casey, can you ask you a favor? Can you put up on the screen how much money we, our historical contributions to the Humane Society, and also what the current increase is? I want to make sure the public, both here and at home, have an understanding as to how we've historically funded, what our participation has been in the past, what we're being asked to do currently, and the percentage increase as it relates to this request and what we're actually funding.
Mayor, what's down here at the bottom is the requested amount and allocated amount for each budget year since 2009. I don't have the percentages there, but I can do that math for you real quick.
That's okay. You don't have to do the math if you don't.
The allocated amount on the bottom on the right is about 320,
Yeah.
isn't it? Isn't it 320 with the additional 20 we gave?
To 2013?
I don't think I can.
Request for 2014.
I mean, for 14, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
on the bottom.
320, yeah. So we started in, let's just start at 2011. 256,000, is that what that says? Yes. Okay, let's just round down, just keep it easy. $256,000 in 2011. We're being asked to fund we're agreeing to fund $320,000. That's one of the largest increases I'm sorry, $330,000 total, is that right?
30 more than.
Yeah, so $330,000. So just so everyone understands, once we are asked to increase funding, we try to do so. But I want to make sure everyone understands that the increase in funding has been, let's see, that adds up to, let's see, that's 40, 50, is that $80,000 increase in 2 years? What's the difference, 30 plus? No, from 2011, that's 50, so $74,000 increase.
I can see right.
Yeah, I can't see quite, it's a little, it's a funny color. So $74,000 increase, and can you tell me what percentage that is? Okay, from 2011 to fiscal year 2014, that's a fairly large increase. And I think everyone will understand that in a time when most of our outside services, outside agencies, and vendors, since Dory made a clear point, this is a vendor relationship, we understand that, and we are trying to have a fair and equitable relationship. But I think the funding has increased over time dramatically, based on, if you look at the historical trends over 3 years of basically no increases. So, this has been a substantial uptick in our funding, and I think the public needs to understand that we spent a lot of money, we're trying to get caught up, but just like the landfill who came to us and wanted, after not charging us enough for many years, decided to increase our rates, they at least let us wade into it slowly, and I think that's how we need to approach any of these requests. So just make sure everyone understands that there's only so much money we can do at one time, and that is a substantial increase relative to any other agency in the city. Yes, go ahead.
My name is Anthony Barnett. I've been a resident here since 2000. I own a business here in town since 2004. I'm on the board at the shelter. And while I do appreciate the math that you did there and the position that the city gets in when they've been undercharged, I just would like to echo that we're not asking just for an increase in funding. We're asking to cover our costs that we incurred. I feel like we give an essential service for the city, and it does get about the dogs and cats and, maybe occasional rabbit, but there's a human side to every human-animal bond in the city. And so that goes to quality of life for Lawrence residents and public safety, and I think it's an essential service. If you don't pay Coke, maybe Coke doesn't deliver as much Coke to the city, but we're still going to be here and we're still ethically bound to our mission to do our job, and the job's going to get done anyway. And so I think we're just asking to cover the costs that we incur from the relationship that we enjoy. I mean, I love being in Lawrence. I love this town and the Humane Society, and I think we just are asking to kind of catch up and cover our costs and our relationship. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm Katie Ibsen. I am a co-chair of the Board of Directors for the Lawrence Humane Society. I do want to thank you for the $20,000 budgeted in the city budget and the additional $30,000. We greatly appreciate that. I think the message here that we're getting is it's still falling short of the cost that it incurs for us to maintain our stray population, assist animal control, and have that fraction in our budget. I think when we see the increase of these numbers, it's a little bit smoke and mirrors in terms of the fact that we've never crunched the numbers before as an organization. Our executive director, who is well-versed in the animal welfare profession, brings a knowledge that helps us understand those numbers, and we are open to sharing those with the city and also going through them with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that they actually represent this request that we're asking for. The cost and the budget that we manage is huge. Doesn't matter the amount of animals. We are happy to serve them all and want to continue to and value our relationship with the city. So while we see the increase, is the $30,000 gap something that we could meet in the middle? Is it something that we could find or even make a schedule to have increases over the next couple of years that would help us get to that amount that we're asking for? We do appreciate everything that you've done for us, so thank you, but please consider that this is a cost analysis, and we do want you to think about that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Additional public comment? Okay, so, okay, great.
Hello, my name is Rana, and I first moved to Lawrence in 2009. Previously, I lived in California, where I volunteered and I was employed by humane societies. And some of those also worked with the city. So I have some familiarity with the Lawrence Humane Society working with the city and what kind of success or failures that can happen as a result. I volunteer for the Lawrence Humane Society, and I have never, anywhere that I've lived, seen the community support for Humane Society, and it's something that I really enjoy. So not only do you have the Lawrence Give Back card, you have the occasional car dealerships, you have people donating their time to volunteer at the shelter, all that kind of thing. Now, that has not been met by other communities. So when I see this saying that they want an additional funding request, because they're working side by side, I don't see it as an additional funding request, but more of the city meeting their obligation. So if the funding is falling short, it shouldn't rely on my donation going to the Humane Society. My donation, I want to go towards the rehabilitation and all that kind of, the adoption of animals. That's what I'm looking to do. But I understand that the city has an obligation to take in the strays. You don't want animals running on the streets unattended, that kind of thing. But when you look at the budget where it says it's increasing every year, I think that's a little short-sighted. It might be increasing a little bit, but where is the rest coming from? It's coming from me, it's coming from other people who are donating. So I just wanted, even though there aren't that many people here today, there is a public support for the Humane Society. You just can't see us here, but you can see us at all the communities. All their donations, the fundraisers, that's for the private donation thing, it's not for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. I donate.
And we appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean,
I donate.
It takes a village, is all I have to say here, so.
My name is Holly Perkins, and I'm a resident of Lawrence, and I am also a member of the Board of Directors of the Humane Society. And one of the things that I wanted to point out is one of the things that I really have been charged with and have taken on since I've been on the board is fundraising, as is every other member of the board of directors. And what we're fundraising for a lot of right now is to reimburse ourselves for the service that we're providing the city. So the fundraising that I do, unfortunately, doesn't get to go to the part of that mission of the Humane Society. Instead, it's going to what we do as a vendor for the city. And so while I pay taxes and I donate to the Humane Society and I go out and ask a lot of people for money and talk about the Humane Society a lot, maybe more than some people would like to hear, I feel like that what I bring in doesn't necessarily, it's just filling that gap because of what we do for the city. And I think that while, yes, we're getting a substantial increase, and like Katie says, we really appreciate it, when you look at 2009, 10, and 11, we were flat. And that may have been because, you know, numbers weren't crunched and they weren't presented to you appropriately or at all.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, we have a new person, Dory, who's done a wonderful job at the Humane Society and now has presented you with these numbers. And so I'm not necessarily, I don't believe that the Humane Society should be punished because of what happened in the past when we've now presented numbers to you. And I think, as Dory mentioned, I think the entire board and Dory and her staff would be happy to sit down and really go through where those numbers came from.
That sounds good. Yeah, just want to make sure everyone understands. I don't see this as, I respect the fact that when you can identify your costs and see a gap between what something costs to provide and what you're being paid for, that you need to make up that difference. I respect and completely agree 100% that that's the case. I just don't know how we can do it all instantly as soon as we find out that there's a gap. And most vendors, and I provide service to my clients, I have to give them notice when my rates are going to go up, and so they can budget for or choose another vendor. And so in this instance, we don't have that choice. So what I would like to do is respectfully request that my opinion is, and it's only mine, is that we have to get there, but it can't happen instantly. And I respect the fact that you've done the numbers, and I want to sit down and see for myself where these numbers came from, how they were formulated, look at the numbers and make sure they're right, because we need to know what it costs to do this, and we need to make sure that we're carrying our fair share. We all understand that. I think every commissioner here understands that. We also are charged with balancing the budget, and we cannot necessarily do that instantly for you. And so, you know, the conversations we've had today and privately, I think, with myself is, you know, I don't think we can do this instantly, but we want to try to do our best to get there as quickly as possible. So that's my take on it. Yeah.
Well, also, and you know, I've had pets, and so I'm very sympathetic to the whole situation. But we have a lot of like requests that we have to pick and choose, and some of them have to do with human beings as opposed to pets. Not that one's any more special than the other. They all have a place in our society. And there's a lot of people that didn't get funded to 100%, and they have a very, very good cause, and they have a very good argument. But it's a matter of what we can do and how much money we have. And as the mayor has pointed out, we've tried to make some pretty sizable additions to the requests to get you to the level where you feel like you should be. And I'm of the opinion we'll look at that in the future as well. I wasn't on the commission when the last numbers were presented in 09 and 10, but perhaps
That I was aware of. I've never saw them.
Perhaps that money was not requested. I don't know. When you say you've earned the money or you've spent the money, you probably did, but if no one ever presented it in the fashion of, well, here's what the actual costs are, how would we know? And so this is the first year that you've been able to document that, and I think that's good. That shows a high level of professionalism. But yeah, it's hard for us to try and catch up all at once, as the mayor said, especially in lieu of the fact that we've got to balance this across many interests. And so I thought we were really being very, very generous this afternoon when we had the conversation to increase, we had already agreed, the city manager had already increased by 7% the amount of money this year, or 13 over 12, and then we came in with an additional $30,000. I thought that was extremely generous based on all the different requests we've had, which some people are not getting very much at all, but there's some groups that are just funded at last year's rate. So I mean, I hope you understand where we're at on this too. It's not just your organization and an unlimited amount of money we have and we can either do it or not do it. Certainly does require us to be fair, equitable throughout the community, and somewhat frugal with the taxpayers' money. So I mean, I think we're doing all we can, and I hope you understand that. I hope no one leaves dissatisfied. So,
Mayor, let's remember one thing too, and folks, we appreciate all the work that everybody does in helping us with this situation. But one of the things we got to remember in 9, 10, and 11 especially, as we had the discussions this afternoon, the economic times in which we live, you know, there wasn't a whole lot of increases, if any increases, to any departments during those times. So, you know, there was a lot of money that was being held close. Dave, I think all of those requested amounts were the actual requests made by the organization, and they were funded at those levels. Now, whether or not the information that Dory provided, you know, obviously it wasn't there at the time, but those were the best numbers we had at the time. They'll continue, you know, to be during those times is the amounts that we funded. You know, yeah, we've got new information. We'll consider that new information. I think we did a pretty good job this afternoon of being able to find additional $30,000 for next year's deal. We will meet over the next year. I think that's one of the things that we'll look at. As the mayor said a little bit ago, no matter if, you know, whoever the vendors may be, if they present us with bills and justification behind it, you know, generally over time, we will get to that point. And that's what this job is just getting to that point. But we've got to have the time to do it, because bottom line is we've got to balance it all. I look at the vendor requests for 2014. Lawrence Humane Society, as far as I can tell, is the single largest line item that we have in the vendor amounts. Mm-hmm. It's the single largest. I think, you know, with the information that was provided by Dory and the individuals who have spoken tonight, we may not be at that level. We're pretty close. But here again, as we look at the number of requests that we have to deal with and the recommendations from staff, I think we're pretty close, and we will get there over time. I appreciate all the work that's been done, but, you know, I think this year, this is about as far as we go. I started out the meeting this afternoon and asking Dave, I said, you know, unless you come up with more money somewhere, you know, I think this will be a fairly short meeting. Well, did you have more money? I haven't seen it yet. I mean, we kind of stretched it as far as we could get it, but I think that we have been able to meet a number of the requests that we have. The important, and they're all very important requests that we deal with. And I don't think the commission has ever ran from any of them. So I appreciate the work, but I think this is a good, solid number for this year.
Mayor and Commissioners, I'm Joan Golden, and I'm representing the Lawrence Public Library, and I'm here tonight to say thank you for the additional funding. The staff and the board will use those funds judiciously as we prepare to open the new library. We appreciate the confidence and support of the community and all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Okay, so is there any other public comment on item 3, which is our budget discussions for 2014? Please.
Hi, I'm Claven Snow, Lawrence resident for 15 years. I have more of a question than a comment. It was stated that there's a disparity between the projected budget and the revenue available to cover those items. I wanted to know if the budget that was being referred to were just the items that were highlighted in blue, or if those included the white items, which were requested funds, and how wide the disparity was.
1.7.
Sure.
Thanks for the question. What I was referring to was the city's general operating fund. The city's 2014 budget is going to be in the neighborhood of about $190 million in revenues. That's all funds, that's all in, that's utilities, sanitation, a lot of other things that you don't see even on this, this spreadsheet. This is the general operating fund where a lot of the city's core services live. If you look at the 14 recommended budget, we think we're going to get about $71 million in revenue. We think we're going to spend about $79 million, but we don't spend the fund balance that stays in the fund. What we actually project is somewhere in the neighborhood of $72 million. So what we do is we work hard, just as every organization does, to match up expenditures with revenues. We're maybe a little bit more hopeful on revenues than what we've got budgeted, but hope's not a great budget strategy. So what we do is we work on expenditures where we say no to expenditures that we control. We usually do not say, and we certainly don't say it without the City Commission's permission, no to dollar amounts that we've allocated to outside agencies. They get what we budget. That's not true for the departments with the city. They can budget that amount, but a lot of times we start off saying, okay, you've got 97% of your budget, and by the way, you're meeting all 26 paychecks. So we look at commodities, we look at contractuals, we look at capital outlays, seeing what we can do to maybe beat what we have budgeted. So when I was talking about that issue, what we try and do is we try and beat those budget projections. This is a little bit tighter than previous years, but we're up to the challenge. We have successfully managed expenditures to revenues since I've been city manager, and I'm sure many years before that as well. There's obviously economy can happen. We're a little bit concerned about sales tax, but we're going to monitor that closely. And I'm very proud of our departments, our department heads that know how to manage to not what's budgeted, but what the revenues are available. So that's sort of what I'm trying to get at that. And the commission understands that. We've had a healthy discussion about it. We know that that's why we've got to be diplomatic, but sometimes stern in saying no to a lot of different requests, but we're also trying to fund a lot of great things too. So that's sort of what I was trying to get at. Not the requests that the commission was doing.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, great. So any other public comment on the general agenda item regarding our 2014 budget summary? Okay. We'll bring it back to the commission. Excuse me. No, what were you suggesting something before? No, I'm kidding. Did you want to make any comments on the budget or additions or subtractions to it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think that to get our vendor contract up to the $359,000 would be good for us to plan on so that they can count on it.
For 2015?
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
if we can increase 28% and, I mean, I wish there was a way that we could do it and we mulled that over this afternoon and, we're already having to say no. I mean, I think it's moving in the right direction, but I think if we can make a commitment that in 15 we'll be able to get there. Because I do agree with the consensus that, there's opportunities to save money in the future in relationship to something like this.
Yeah.
And so I think if we can make that commitment along with the additional funding of $30,000 to bring them up to 330, I mean, I think I'd feel a whole lot better about that. That way Dory and her staff can count on the fact that next year it's good.
Absolutely.
They're going to get the amount that they need to fulfill their services.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't want to necessarily blindly, just to dovetail on what Dory mentioned as a vendor, I don't want to blindly increase my funding until I see until I have a good understanding that I'm representing the entire community and paying for these increases. And I want to take a good look at this. And if I see this as a serious problem and a way to solve or save money, then this is a no-brainer. Because if we can save our own resources and we can prove that these dollars are being expended on our needs and services, then we should have to pay for those.
Sure.
I agree with you, but I just, you can't snap your fingers and come up with the shortfall instantly. It's a budgetary.
Wish we could,
Well, what I would agree to is to look at the numbers and try to get to 100% of the cost of what the first 4 days of stay is at the shelter. That's contingent on a lot of things. So that's contingent on a revenue increase and it's contingent on a whole bunch of other things. I wouldn't commit tonight to that, but I certainly would commit to the idea to look at everything and try to get there if at all possible. I mean, I think that's all any of us can reasonably do.
Sure.
And they present a very good case, but as we've indicated already, we've just got to spread the money out as far as we can, and we're at the top of our ability right now. But I would agree that that's something I'd be in favor of for next year to try and get there.
Fair enough.
One of the things that I saw in the city of Lawrence as I went around this year was a passion for Lawrence. And the Humane Society has a passion for what they do, and I love seeing that. I love seeing them come up and request it for these animals who cannot do this for themselves. It's a tremendous group. When I also went around the city, I saw lots of people, Pioneer Ridge, Brandon Woods, who were just absolutely pushed financially. They don't have increases. They ask us to stay within our budget, and we've raised the mill levy 0.5, and we raised it another 0.1 to try to increase the library and increase the Humane Society, and all these are great things, and we turned down a lot of people, and we decreased a lot of budgets, and there's a point where you have to decide what you can do and how much you can do it, just like a family. And I think this is a very good group. I think over the next year, I would love to be able to fund them fully and to work with them, document that all these, that we feel comfortable as stewards of the city's money, that this is being spent correctly. I have no reason to doubt that it's not. But I think this is a great exhibit of, once again, a city who has a passion, and the people who have a passion for what they do. And we've done our best effort at this point to increase these, and we'll continue to try to do our best effort. And we ask you to come back next year and make the same passion, please, and do these things for the animals and for the people of the city of Lawrence. So I think it's something where it's very disturbing when you can't give everybody everything they need, but there's a lot of people disappointed at us because we haven't funded them 100%, but I think we've made as good a faith effort. And one of the things that I've truly enjoyed is these past several months, the commissioners and their commitment to the city of Lawrence and trying to do the best thing. And that I can guarantee you each and every one of these gentlemen here have tried to do. So thank you very much for coming tonight and making your points, and come back next year too and help us to continue to improve the city.
Else?
I have a question for staff then. So tonight's action is to approve a dollar amount not to exceed $185,583.69 plus the $84,000 that we added. Is that not correct?
Million.
$185 million.
Just make sure. 185 million.
185 million plus and then the 84,000. So okay, here's the number I get. That would shortchange a few people.
Yeah. I just spent $3 million today, so I'm
so it's $185,667,619.
That's what Casey's got.
And then but we don't have to add in any numbers where you're going to find money in any balances, correct?
We've got those items listed, and I've got a week or so to come up with a report on how we're going to do that. That'd be my goal, is to say this is where I'm going to do this.
But for tonight's motion,
nope.
That's
Nope. You've given me that direction on those items.
And we still have, and we have to send the maximum mill levy is increased by 0.51%.
Yeah, right there.
That's all part of it. One of the, I don't want to get too detailed, but Casey, correct me. What we do is when we're filling out the budget forms, we give that maximum property tax amount, and we're basing it off of the assessed valuation number.
We give the maximum expenditure amount that we want to make, and then it calculates the mill levy that's necessary to generate.
The dollar's the motion.
She said, right.
The dollar's the motion.
We give the dollars,
Right.
and then because the assessed valuation number we think is pretty solid. That's what the county's telling us, but it fluctuates a little bit, and that's what they nailed down.
Mayor, I may also suggest I would like for us to, and I don't know if this is a relevant point in relationship to the publication of the budget, but to make the $12,000 allocation for the Lawrence Children's Choir unrestricted, so that they may use that for whatever they see fit. I mean, it's always easier for nonprofits to have money that's, I've been assured by their director that they're still going to offer money and scholarships, but it's just easier when you're receiving money from someplace like the city of Lawrence if it's unrestricted for, that way they can, because it's easier to raise money from the community for scholarships than it is for general operating expenses.
Everybody understand what that is, Dave? We're providing $12,000 to the Lawrence Children's Choir based upon the earlier designation of scholarship, and what Commissioner Farmer's motioning or recommending is that be unrestricted.
Yeah, we're fine with that.
Thank you.
Okay, so so you said 100.
I've got the number
You
here.
got the number there. You've written it down. Joel, go ahead and when we do the motion, I just want to say a couple things if I can. Well, number one, I think it's great that after all this hard work by staff, by the city employees, by the public and reading this information, that the biggest problem we had tonight was how we're going to pay the Humane Society its fair share. I mean, that was a big deal tonight. And for a $189 million budget, I think that speaks volumes. So I think good job, staff, Casey, all the department heads, everyone who had anything to do with this budget. It's been tough. I think we're being conservative, and I'm hoping that that we'll be able to exceed our revenue expectations, and there won't be any need to borrow from reserves.
Mayor, can I add something?
Sure.
And I am especially pleased and amazed of what we're going to accomplish in addition to the budget items. And of course, these are all money related. We're going to have enough money to build out the backbone of our cable, or
Fiber optic
cable. We're going to have enough money through one way or another to finish the Santa Fe station. We're going to have Breesedale, and we're going to have the other grant match for the trail south. We're going to take care of Hearthstone. We're going to take care of the Douglas County Dental Clinic. We're going to take care of the Lawrence Arts Center kitchen. We're going to have some money for security improvements at the community health building. And it seems like we did
And land for a police station.
Land for a police station.
That's right.
And, we're covering such a wide swath of items that we all had identified in our goal session that it's truly amazing to me. And we're going to do that with about a $0.5 mil increase in the property tax. I think that's pretty outstanding for the staff to come up with creative ideas that will get us there, as well as for the commission to work together to put this package together. So I think it's an outstanding budget, and we're going to see a lot of real fine action because of that.
Yeah. Yeah, this will add up to less than 2 mil levy increase, a unilateral or a commission initiated mill levy increase, less than 2 mils over the last 7 years. So that's pretty good. That's I think it's 1.5 actually, if you add it all up. Casey, what was it up to? We were just under 1 before.
They were, looking back, I think it's a 0.5% increase over the last 10 years, which is much less than the cost of
Could be
living.
worse. All right, good.
I'll be ready to make a motion this time if there's no other discussion.
Are you good?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. You have any comments?
Just real quick, I do appreciate all the work that our staff does on putting together these numbers. I know the number of people and organizations that they meet with, and in trying to come up with a budget that's balanced, that doesn't, that meets all of the things that, that we try to do, the goals and priorities that we have as a commission, and for the community. and somehow they figure out a way to be able to meet, our goals with monies that necessary to carry out, the services that we all demand. I mean, we demand good quality services, and we're very fortunate in Lawrence, Kansas, that our staff's able to provide those for us.
As a new commissioner, to come in and to look at this and read this from page 1 to the very end, at least, the whole way through once and multiple sections many times, I was amazed how, with a couple hours worth of discussions, that I was able to understand this and how well the city is run and how financially, fiscally responsible we are. And that's because of the staff and the leadership there.
Amen. Okay.
Well done, Dave and team. Casey
We'll see.
and everyone else. So.
Credit to a lot of people, that's for sure.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion at this time.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to authorize the publication of 2014 budget summary in the maximum amount of $185,667,619.00, and establish July 23rd, 2013 as the public hearing date.
I'll second it if his math's right.
I think his math is right.
Okay.
Second, okay.
It's okay.
Motion by Commissioner Shum
I bumped it 50 grand.
for the Humane Society. Motion by Commissioner Shum, second by Vice Mayor Amix. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes 5-0. All right, it's not done yet.
You're all gonna get paid.
Still, it's the 23rd. Okay, any public comment of a general nature? Okay, very good. Any future agenda items we need to discuss this evening?
I don't believe we need to discuss them. You see what we've got there.
Got it.
I have a conflict on Friday. There's a intergenerational meeting with Dennis Domer that I will probably attend, so I send my regrets.
For the Planning Commission lunch?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because there's a ribbon cutting that day too. You saw that.
What Friday?
Groundbreaking, excuse me.
That's next. That's this coming.
This Friday?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've got two.
Does everyone have on their calendar the Planning Commission orientation lunch?
Yes.
Should have received requests if you were able to attend.
We were invited.
And then we'll probably be a little bit late for lunch, Scott, because we'll be down at the
Breaking Ground.
Breaking Ground and all the other good stuff going on down the street.
And Scott, as I told Sheila, I'll only be there for part of the luncheon, okay?
We appreciate anybody that can make it and usually provide some, some words of wisdom to the Planning Commission from your perspective, so it's always a good meal to have with them.
Jason's Deli?
Chipotle, I think.
See, they have better sense.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
And you, Mayor, you have the, I see you're doing the one on the 18th. Thank you.
Thank you, because I forgot that was sidewalk sale day.
Sure.
I'm glad you stepped up.
I didn't know I did, but clearly I was inserted into the mix on the 18th. I'll be here, right? August 18th?
I hope so.
Yes.
No, July 18th.
I mean, July 18th? Where's that? I don't see that.
A week from Thursday.
Let me see if Bobby put that on my calendar so I don't. The July 18th?
7:30.
Yes, I got it on here.
We've got Cindy's Simple Life. I don't know what kind of deal that is.
Okay. Any commission items? I think we've discussed the calendar. If there's no objection, is there a motion to
So
adjourn?
moved.
Second.
Motion to adjourn by Commissioner Farmer, second by Vice Mayor Amix. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Good night.
16.